Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States, looking around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we go to a planet of 9 billion people by 2050, how are we going to be able to take care of them so that they have an increased quality of life and not just exist? And I have someone sitting right beside me who is a retired out of the military from the Air Force. This is Oscar Vaughn. He's a graduated fellow and volunteer in the 4th Platoon of what's called the Mission Continues, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force retired, and Department of Homeland Security, DHS contractor, and welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you, Dr. Sam.
Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you, and you're doing excellent work. And I just love this organization. The Mission Continues. It has such a great name. It's good and solid, and you're doing good work. But tell us, and first of all, I want to thank you for your military service and say welcome here and what you did for your nation and for the citizens of this country.
Thank you. It was an honor.
And I don't think that you guys really get enough thanks.
Well, I've gotten plenty, so.
Well, we're going to keep adding to that. But anyway, we're glad you're here and thank you for your service. Share a little bit about what is Mission Continues, and then how does your former military service fit into this?
Well, again, thanks for being here, and thanks for allowing me to talk about one of my passions in life. The Mission Continues has been part of my life for about 18 months, almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. And it's a way for me to give back to the community that I used to serve in a uniform. I'm out of uniform now, so it's a way to give back to the community, give back to my country, and give back to the world.
Well, the whole thing about your military background, you have this great discipline. They give you tremendous skills. It's a good education and training center through the military, because I had offices in different military bases, and I really understand that. But how did you become involved in the Mission Continues? What was that transition from being in the military now going into this, what's a nonprofit?
It is a nonprofit, but we do a lot of very valuable things. So I retired from the United States Air Force in September 2013. Mm-hmm. Started working for my company as a contractor for DHS. My company is called DXC Technology. Mm-hmm. And started working for DHS almost immediately in October 2013. The transition was very difficult for me, as it is with a lot of folks who spend a lot of time in service and also in a uniform. I had about 31 and a half years in uniform. So
that's a long time, 31 and a half years.
I barely can remember when I began, to be honest with you.
That's incredible.
It was a very long time, but it was a way of life. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden that way of life was gone. So I was looking for a way to replace what I had and mm-hmm. also be able to give back service to my country. So I waited about a year and a half after I had started working, and heard about the Mission Continues actually on the Diane Rehm show on Veterans Day.
Of all places, yes. And she is very famous and does great work as far as bringing the community and then putting it out worldwide.
Absolutely. So the founder of the Mission Continues, who's now the governor of Missouri, Eric Greitens, was on the Diane Rehm show talking about veterans and veterans giving back to their community through his organization, which was called the Mission Continues. So I hadn't heard about it. I immediately turned back around. I was driving somewhere. It's Veterans Day. So I turned back around, got on the computer, looked it up, and immediately signed up for 1st Platoon, and never looked back.
And the rest is history, as they say.
Absolutely.
And talking about the transition, you've given us a little insight that you needed something that was a bridge from the many long years of service in the military to the civilian life, even though you're still working with DHS, which is quasi-military anyway. But what were some of the other steps that allowed you to transition and feel more comfortable in civilian life that maybe you never even thought about?
Well, one of the things that was hardest for me, and I'll just speak for myself and not for other people, one of the hardest things was actually trying to have a sense of purpose and a sense of mission. So one of the things that I'd missed the most was not having an actual mission to do every day. So the Mission Continues allows us to really plan and do things that are kind of mission focused and mission oriented. You have a goal, you have several steps that you must do to achieve your goal, and then at the end of your day, you hopefully have achieved your objective. So it worked out pretty well, and it was really something that allowed me to kind of get back into the flow of the things that I was most comfortable doing.
Now, when we first started talking, you were now in 4th Platoon.
Yes.
And that's a very active organization.
Absolutely.
It has a tremendous number of people in there. So something that's that active, and they do more than one activity within a month. So you have a service and you have socials and all that. How did you find those as stepping stones leading into where you now have a quite successful career outside of the military, but still you have this comfortable relationship with the military? Well,
really, one of the reasons I wanted to join the Mission Continues was because of the nature of the things that they did. So I claim both North Carolina and Southeast DC as home, and most of the Mission Continues missions are in Southeast DC. So it was a way to give back to the community I grew up in, and it was also a way to still help, again, my fellow man. So I started off in 1st Platoon and started signing up for just lots of different types of events, and so it actually taught me quite a bit. 4th Platoon just happens to be very active, and Rose keeps us very, very active. So
Rose is the team leader
Rose is Rose Feroah, who you have on after me, and she keeps us very, very active. She's very good at both the social and also the hard work piece too.
Yeah.
And she'll give you all the stats and stuff of everything we've done.
And what really intrigued me is the fact is you are in Southeast. We've been working as EmeraldPlanet there almost 8 years now, doing solar, water sequester, many other projects, also education. We have returning citizens, you know what that is,
Absolutely.
People who've been in prisons, as well as service members. And that area really needs the help, but at the same time, it's now starting to develop at a very fast clip. And I think what you're doing here as far as the Mission Continues is actually aiding all of that.
Well, we'd
so
like
it's
to think
wonderful.
so. We'd like to think so, yes.
The Recovery Program Solutions of Virginia is where you went through this fellowship.
Yes.
That you were granted and learned about Mission Continues at the same time to transition back in. How did that really influence where you are today? And maybe what's some of the things that you learned through that maybe you didn't know in the military, but yet this was more than just a transition, it's actually transformative.
Well, the Mission Continues gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of mission, right? So this was a way, going through my fellowship with RPSV, Recovery Program Solutions of Virginia, was a way to see the other side of public service. So RPSV does several things. Primarily, we work with folks who are homeless, but also have substance abuse and mental health issues. A lot of returning citizens and a lot of returning veterans who are coming back into civilian life, have a lot of those types of issues where we have things like PTSD, and we have a lot of those types of transitional issues that folks in the homeless community frankly have. So one of the reasons I wanted to do my fellowship through RPSV and work at a specific site, which is the South County Drop-In Recovery Center down in Lorton, is a lot of the folks who utilize that facility are veterans. They're in that Fort Corridor to Old Town corridor. So a lot of the folks that actually use our services are vets. A lot of the people who utilize our services throughout the 5 centers that we have in RPSV have a military background. So when you're thinking about this area that we're in Northern Virginia, the DMV area, we have a lot of folks who are afflicted by that. So it's a way to give back to also. Yeah,
we have what's called Great Patrol within my Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. There's about maybe 450 that we know all of them by greats, literally, and that's why it's called the Great Patrol. So we take their medicines, blankets, whatever they need out there, and we do that on a month-to-month basis. And so there may be something here that we should be linking in with what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Because there's people that really want to be transformed. They just get stuck. They don't know how to do that. So this is something we need to really think about.
Yes, sir.
But looking at the lessons learned, let's carry that another step. How do you get people, now that you have this thing with the homeless, how do you transition them off so that they move into housing, they move into the services they need, and then hopefully eventually into work?
Well, one of the things about this area, there are a lot of organizations, not just the one I'm a part of, but lots of organizations that actually are in that transitional services. They're always looking out to help those who are in need, and we just happen to be one of the other organizations. There are a lot of types of day shelters, which we actually do and run, and then we also have the night shelters as well. So we're always in constant communications with those folks. There are a lot of folks in the faith community that are also trying to help, and there are a lot of the other nonprofits in the area that are looking to help those that need to transition away from that which they kind of got themselves caught up in, whether it was drugs, whether it was alcohol, whether it was just habitual homelessness.
Sure.
They're trying to help them get back into a normal flow. So we try to work with those folks quite a bit, and frankly, it keeps us quite busy.
That's wonderful. What do you think your future plans are as far as the mission continues as a nonprofit?
Frankly, I'll stay as long as they let me stay, and that really goes.
There's no way to really graduate out of that, is it?
No, and I don't think you really want to. I think there are other things to do. We're always looking for other things to work with. We have a lot of our platoons are working with the schools. We work with Democracy Prep right there in Southeast. That's a very transformative place for kids. You'll talk to Rose. She works with the U.S. Park Service. We work a lot with the Park Service sites, and we do a lot of the heavy lifting, I guess, for lack of a better term, to help build those plots and sites that people can come in and grow their own food.
Yeah, and the whole thing about it too, as far as the conservation and really turning these parks into something that is for the community, is to allow people to come in and be involved. And I think that's very important, to get the community involved as well as what you're doing, because I would assume the platoon really covers most of the DMV, and so you're coming from different areas, even though you're focused in Southeast. What do you see for the growth and expansion of the mission continue, say, over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
My hope is that we get more integrated within the local community. We tend to focus a lot in areas that need us the most, but I hope over time we'll be more greatly integrated with the local governments as well, that allow us to do more in their local areas.
I think that what you're doing is absolutely fantastic, and we're glad you're here and sharing about that. This is Oscar Vaughn, graduated fellow and volunteer, 4th Platoon. The mission continues, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force, retired, as we create the Emerald Planet.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation.
You're resigning.
Why? You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit. Oh, I forgot. I'll do better. Please don't quit on me.
Don't let your heart quit on you. Get your uncontrolled high blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late.
So you can't save money? That's easy as pie. Brown bagging lunch instead of going out. $6 save times 5 days a week times 10 years is $21,000. That's a lot of lettuce. Small changes today, big bucks tomorrow. Feedthepig.org.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls. But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the-right seat. to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome back to the Emerald Planet. Thank you for being with us. We come to you on a week-to-week basis, looking around the globe for those 1,000 best practices, technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And of course, we're looking for the leaders that are determined now and in the future that they're going to make a difference as we go to a planet of 9 billion people from the 7.3 billion we have right now. And so how are we going to create an Earth which is going to be friendly to the environment, have a dynamic economy, at the same time bring about community development? And we have someone that's coming on that's in an organization, it's a volunteer, nonprofit, that's actually doing all three of these simultaneously. This is Rose Feroah. She's the 4th Platoon leader of the Mission Continues and a former member of the United States Marine Corps. And Rose, thank you for being with us. And first of all, I want to start off thanking you for your service to your country and the citizens of the United States and your work through the United States Marine Corps.
You're welcome.
Glad to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about your perception of the nonprofit, The Mission Continues, and its connection with your work with the U.S. Marine Corps.
I don't know what you mean about perception, but I'm very grateful that it's around. I had no clue when I got out of the Marine Corps in 2007 that there was or would be anything to help me continue my service after I left the Marine Corps. Because when people say thank you for your service, my first response is always, I'm still serving. So they definitely help us veterans who aren't quite done using our hearts and our hands to continue that service in our community.
Well, I think about, just like me thanking you for the service, this is something that in some ways perfunctory, but at the same time on what we're doing, because I've been dealing with the military and most of my professional career. And what the military does for the United States goes so far beyond just protecting the motherland and its borders. And if you look at World War II, really, the development of the American economy after World War II really came from the training and education of the military. And that's continued. And we have very small numbers now in this professional military, but the impact is profound. And so when we say thank you, it's for much greater than just taking care of all of us and protecting us. But how did you become involved with Mission Continues?
I was propositioned by a friend of a friend of a friend, and they asked me, hey, do you want to volunteer? And I said, absolutely. Where do I go? What do I do? And I signed up, and I showed up to my first full service project, and I was greeted by E.J. Delpero, the 4th Platoon leader at the time, and a crew of people in blue. And like a proper Marine, I was slightly hungover and not willing to really deal with all of it, and or I wasn't willing to do all of it, but with a little bit of a hangover. And like an hour and a half in, I was absolutely hooked, and by the end of the day, I'd had the best day I'd had in a good 5 years. That's absolutely fantastic. And I want to introduce now Oscar Vaughn, who's a good friend of yours. He's actually in your 4th Platoon, and he's part of the Mission Continues as a graduated fellow and volunteer. U.S. Air Force retired, and he's now a contractor with the Department of Homeland Security. And Oscar, I think you have the next question.
I do, and I know you're not impressed at all with that long intro he gave me, because you don't even know me like that, so that's okay. So Rose was kind of sort of like my inspiration, so I'll give this story just very quickly. Rose was the second person I met when I joined the organization in 2015. And she's always been my mentor. She's always been my inspiration to keep going, because there are days when I really don't want to do a whole lot, and I remember Rose, and it makes me move a little bit. That's fantastic. So I get to ask you a question, Rose. How has the organization helped you with your transition from active duty military to civilian life?
Well, Oscar.
Thought you'd never ask, right, Oscar?
What took you so long? So, you know, when I got out of the Marine Corps in 2007, I didn't tell people I was a veteran, and I sure as heck didn't tell people I was in the Marine Corps, because you hear things like, you're not a Marine, and you're like, you're right, I'm lying. But it was actually a source of a little bit of shame for me, because being a woman in the Marine Corps was not easy, and there was a lot of negative feelings attached to that in the beginning. And being part of Michigan Continues helped me exercise all the best parts that I had from the military that I kind of didn't get to when I was serving active duty, but I get to do now. So my transition didn't really start until, you know, darn near 8 years later, when I got to serve in an unbiased and unjudging form, I guess you could say.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you for answering that so completely. What are your duties actually as the 4th Platoon leader? I know you have the hat, so people can see who you are, and this is the center, the locus of authority here. But what do you actually do through the Mission Continues?
So as a platoon leader, as 4th Platoon leader, I work with the National Park Service to cultivate service projects that would last a day, and to find organizations to support. One thing we do very well is we bring sweat equity to a day. So we might not be able to contribute monetary funds, but we can sure enough bring muscle and hard work. And we also do, it's also my job to create socials to keep people engaged, because sometimes we don't want to get out, and it's easy to say no to one person, but when you've got 3 to 4 people badgering you to come out and go to ice skating, or go see the Tomb of the Unknown, or go bowling, or go do something like this, it's kind of hard to say no. And then you get to see all your favorite people in one spot, and it makes everything a lot easier.
Now, you were telling me earlier, and I'm going to just insert this in here, but we were talking about the socials, the 3 different areas that they want you to do really as a minimum. You've gone way beyond that. Where are those 3 areas so that you're bringing a balance to the lives of the retired military officers and the returning service members that you feel like is so important and allows the numbers within the 4th Platoon to be so high and so active?
Well, honestly, I started with an amazing base of volunteers due to EJ's hard work. He was the platoon leader before me, and he handed it off to me. And, you know, it's the work hard, play hard. We have 5 values in the Mission Continues: learn and grow, trust, respect, hard work, and work hard and have fun. And we do work very hard, and it's important to have just enough fun. So honestly, to be able to go out and have a 7-hour day of service, or to go out and have a 3-hour support project, and then to go out and have like a fun night. We've gone camping for entire weekends, and it's a great way to make those bonds, to have those moments, to make those connections, and that's what really strengthens the platoon. Yeah,
we had early on in one of the slides here, we had the interface as far as the National Capital Park Service East that you're working with. Going to Anacostia Park, Fort Dupont, some of the other parks within your area, why is it so important for your people to have these green conservation projects, and then to really give back to the community in that very form?
You know, I think that I'm very environmentally conscious. I've made some changes in 4th Platoon to reflect my values in that regard. You know, I don't really buy water bottles and let people do that. Bring your own water bottle. You know, we can't keep doing that. You know, I've stopped doing some certain other things in the environment, like putting down other plastics and whatnot. But it's important to show the communities that I live in. I live 7 minutes from Anacostia. I live 9 minutes from Fort Dupont. I'm always there. And it's important to share values and remind people that we only get one of these planets. And We can't keep ignoring all of the science and the information out there, and we have to make changes. And if I can do that on a community level, I think that's one of the most effective ways to make change.
And I think what you have here is multi-generational, where probably this is a father and son, but at least a leader and a youth from the community. And it's fantastic that you're sharing those values and carrying those forward, the concept of pay forward into the future. But Oscar, you have the next question.
I do. And one of the things about also part of our organization is we encourage families to bring their kids. Because
that's fantastic.
It's one of those things where if the kids see the parents projecting certain values and also, trying to take care of their community, trying to take care of the folks in the community, no matter where they are or who they are. I think that really sends a strong message to not only the kids, but to the folks around. Because if you see the kids around and the way that they're treated, and Rose always has projects for the kids that actually dovetail into what we're doing. So the kids aren't just kind of playing around, they're always out there.
Well, the whole thing too is when you have the adults and the children together, the adults are actually learning from the kids as well. Because it's communication times that many families don't really have until you're in this kind of situation where you're focused. We have to dig this ditch or put in this plant or plant, tomatoes, whatever it is, and they have to communicate.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, your question.
So some of the, what are some of the lessons learned in your conservation projects which could be helpful to other Mission Continues platoons and also other Park Service locations around the country?
That's a very good question.
Thank you.
So some of the lessons I've learned is that everybody has a different way of doing things, and it's okay to ask questions and to push back if you have done your research. So a couple of that is, for a long time I heard a lot of things about you can't use pressure-treated wood, it's got X, Y, and Z in them. And I went ahead and did the research. I'm like, actually, they changed in 2003, and it's okay to do that now. But so my lessons learned would be, use your network not use your network, use your platoon members. I can't tell you how many amazing people we have in our leadership team. We've got an organic chemist, we have an engineer, we have a nurse, we've got environmental protection. I mean, we've got a little bit from everything, and everybody's so gosh darn smart that at our leadership meetings, they've always got something to add that makes whatever idea one person had 100 times better. So my lessons learned would be pull from your platoons and your members, because they've got a wealth of information to help you get the job done better and greener.
Well, one last quick question, about 15 seconds, so got to be quick. What do you see for the next 5, 10, 15 years as far as working with the Park Service East?
I hope that our partnership with the Park Service East really emphasizes our commitment to service and to the environment, and that the government sees that and they protect our parks as well.
Fantastic. This is Rose Feroah, 4th Platoon Leader. The mission continues. Former member of the United States Marine Corps. Sitting right beside me is Oscar Vaughn, a retired from the Air Force, as we create the Emerald Planet.
Strawberries? Okay.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you on a week-to-week basis as we look around the globe in over 144 different nations, looking for what we call the best of the best practices, the best products, the best services, and the best processes that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we do that, we need to look at how do we glean out of those all the many thousands, which we've now found over 2,000 different new technology services and products that really can have a positive impact, but at the same time change people's lives, allow them to take control of their lives and contribute back to their communities. And I have someone that's with me that's actually doing really all of that. This is E.J. Delpero. He is a 5th Platoon leader of the Mission Continues, and he's a former member of the United States Navy. And glad to have you with us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you here, and I want to say thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support.
Through the Navy, for the country, and also the citizens. It's very important what you do. And if we look at the news media now, the Navy is becoming even more important around the globe for peace and stability. And it's amazing what the Navy does as far as search and rescue. And this is something you don't think about, is that the U.S. Navy and the U.S. military in general is the largest humanitarian organization on the planet, bar none. And that's something that people really lose. Actually, they don't even know about it. It's not they lose sight of it, they just don't know about it. And so anyway, thank you for doing all that. But tell us a little bit about your perception of this nonprofit, The Mission Continues, which you're now the 5th Platoon leader. And what's that connection to your military service?
Interesting question. So the Mission Continues empowers veterans who are adjusting to life at home to serve their communities in new ways. I was in the United States Navy, as you mentioned, for about 6.5 years. I got out August 17th, 2014. 3 days later, I was at a pizza social with the Mission Continues here in DC. At the time, it was now City Impact Manager Connor Mallon throwing that social. He was a platoon leader for 2nd Search Platoon before signing on to the Mission Continues staff. As you know, we are all volunteers.
Correct.
We do this because we believe in it. And so I was really intrigued by what I heard at this social, this pizza social, which again, you know, I know some have spoken about, you know, some of the programs we have. We have, you know, social support projects and service projects. So at this social, I was really engaged. And I moved on from there by becoming a platoon member right away, and then a leadership team member, a fellow at the National Air and Space Museum, a platoon leader, and a mass deployment ambassador. So it's been a really incredible program for me, and I can't thank the Mission Continues enough for allowing me and giving me a chance to serve my community.
Yeah, and it's just really incredible the fact that you came out, because so many people are, for years, they're looking for something like this, and it takes them 5, 10, 15 years to find it, and you came out and 3 days later, here it was, right there in front of you. So you're doubly blessed by having that. One, it was very quick, and secondly, it allowed you to get involved at a very rapid rate. But how's that helped you as far as your transition from your active military duty into civilian life?
The Mission Continues gave me a chance to make an impact in my community and to learn and grow and to become a leader and inspire our future generations and work with wonderful people like Oscar and Rose, who I have the utmost respect for. And, you know, they've given me a chance to kind of navigate the sometimes often difficult process of getting out of the military service and going into the the civilian sector with really no idea what we're supposed to be doing. You know, I'm actually a student, so this entire time that I've been involved in the Mission Continues, I've also been a student, and actually I'm a student at George Mason University, which
is a very fine research university.
Absolutely, yep, the largest public research university in the state of Virginia.
Yeah,
so.
and it's an amazing place in Northern Virginia.
It is, so I'm very lucky to be there as well. And so, you know, it's just been one of those things. I mean, they've opened my eyes to so many things, community issues, you know, really proven that if you just put yourself out there and if you work towards a common goal with like-minded people and great community members that are often overshadowed in some of these areas that we can talk about, you know, that we serve in DC, you know, particularly Southeast and those areas, you know, it changes you because your whole perception is altered in a positive manner.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I love the core values the Mission Continues brings because you see that at every service project that we're at. And I know Rose mentioned them, and I hold those dear as well. So. Yeah,
it's absolutely fantastic. And the whole thing about it, too, is many people go there, they think, well, we're going to give to the community and we're going to change lives and all that. Actually, the lives that are changed are your own and the people within the platoon itself. And that's really, and that's this whole feedback loop that many people don't even know that's going to happen till they actually get there, because it's actually always coming back to you if you're putting out positive and you're giving out, you know, good energies.
I believe they call that karma,
come back.
Right?
Yes, that's part of that is karma. There's more to it than that. But,
absolutely.
But it's all part of that is what you get back. You know, it's a universal law of compensation.
Yeah.
If you're giving out good, you get back good. And so that's the whole thing that we want to do. What are your duties as the 5th platoon leader within the Mission Continues?
So as a platoon leader, you are confronted with a lot of different things, pretty much everything that encompasses the operation. So, you know, you're working recruitment, you're working outreach and engagement on a daily basis, you're planning for projects, you're motivating your leadership team, which is by far the most important component of the platoons. And you know, and I know Rose mentioned me earlier, and you know, I have to say, without Rose, 4th Platoon, the one that I was part of, would not have been what it was. We won Southeast Platoon of the Year, and if it wasn't for Rose, you know, I don't think we would have been there. You know, we were just that dynamic team, and she went on to take on 4th Platoon in a manner that I've never expected. So all the more respect for her. But as a platoon leader, you know, you really have to set the tone for the project, and you have to get the materials. And oddly enough, tomorrow is Labor Day, and for our team here in DC, it's actually going to be Home Depot Day. So we're going to be spending about 6 hours at Home Depot getting materials for our upcoming 9/11 Day of Service on September 9th. At UDC Causes East Capitol Urban Farm. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And we actually have had them on EmeraldPlanet TV.
Really?
Because sustainable nutrition is one of the 10 tracks that we have.
I'll have
and
to look
so
that
we've
up.
had about probably about 148 different shows on sustainable nutrition, and this is globally as well as within the community. But we've been working in where you are in Ward 8 and Ward 7 now for about 8 years. And so we know people in the area very well.
Yeah.
And we're there
seriously
every week.
Can't thank you enough for being a part of that and supporting them. And you know, we really like going in there and doing our part too.
Yeah, and we just gave a significant grant to the urban greens that are right there.
Okay.
And so that's very important.
Absolutely.
But talking about your work as far as the food deserts, this is something in Ward 8, Ward 7.
Yep.
I have become very infamous because this is not a really good thing. Ward 8 really doesn't have a major grocery store. But yet you're going in and doing gardening and creative horticulture and nutrition. Tell us a little bit about that, and why did you select that as your area as far as the food deserts? Because that's a very difficult issue to be able to crack and do something positive about.
Well, you can't solve a problem if you're not actively engaged in supporting efforts to make things better. You know, with 5th Platoon and our mission, part of the Mission Continues overall goal, and one of the big tenets that they pride themselves on is inspiring the next generation. And so with 5th Platoon, we wanted to kick our operations off at an elementary school. And so we were partnered at the time with Arcadia Center for Sustainable Food and Agriculture in Alexandria, Virginia. They're a great nonprofit. But They have a few programs. One of them is a mobile market program, and that mobile market program takes fresh produce and meat that they have received from other farms in the area, and they go to these areas of Southeast and others. They have mobile market stops. One of their stops was Henley Elementary School in Southeast. Sadly, Henley is one of the lowest performing elementary schools in DC, and so we connected with Henley via the Arcadia Foods, and we really saw a great need to build an outdoor education space for them. So we really started to dive into solving that. And we through the process, we found the Washington Youth Garden, which has programming at Henley, and they teach kids about gardening. And so we decided to kick off our operations with the Washington Youth Garden at the National Arboretum. And we had a great, successful project, and we formed a really great relationship with the Washington Youth Garden. And then we combined efforts on our Great Hornet Garden reboot at Henley on March 3rd, and we built that outdoor education center for the school.
That's absolutely fantastic, because my Rotary Club, actually, we worked with Henley and also Stanton Elementary, which was actually, when we first took over there, that was actually the lowest performing school in all of Washington, D.C. And now it's risen up to, it's almost in the middle.
Well, they are great kids.
They're very smart. It's just the fact is they need the opportunity, and they need someone to really focus on them, you know, so it's the old Hawthorne effect. You shine a light on it, good things will happen. And it sounds like what you're doing as far as gardening. What are some of the lessons learned as far as the gardening and the horticulture projects that you've had in Southeast that actually could be replicated across the United States, even around the world, because this program is seen all over the globe?
Since we just talked about Henley, I'll say that I think it's very valuable for schools to have outdoor education areas for the kids. You know, coming from my own experience as a student back in the day, I mean even now as a college student, but you know, I kind of feel that it's important for kids to get outside and just get their hands in dirt and see what that's all about, and learn a little bit about that, learn a little bit about how things grow, and kind of fostering that growth, I think, is a really important tool for people as they're growing up. And so if schools can find a way, you know, to do that, like Henley, they partner with other organizations, with the Washington Youth Garden, you know, the Mission Continues, your Rotary Club, things like that. Yeah, and then you know, like our next project that we did after Henley was Arcadia. We went to Arcadia, and we basically updated all of their infrastructure. And it's a huge farm. There's like,
I was going to say, that's a major project when you're doing that.
Yeah, and that's really that. I mean, the leadership teams that we develop, that we have and we foster, you know, really make it all possible. But we had all these different areas that we were running. Actually, Rose was the foreman of the build operation because she's so skilled in that regard. It's incredible.
And she also wears the hat.
I listened to Rose. I mean, she told me to come here today, and I said absolutely, I'll be there.
Just say yes, ma'am, and you're here.
But we really worked hard to improve that, and we did that because they support us. They have the mobile markets. They have a education garden for the kids, certified through the county, and then they also have a veteran farmer program. So you know, we support those that support, you know, our mission.
That's absolutely fantastic. It's E.J. Delpero. He is the 5th platoon leader of the Mission Continues and a former member of the United States Navy. Thank you again for your service. Thank you for being here.
Thank you again for your support.
You continue your service as we create the Emerald Planet.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
I dare you. I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education. I dare you to be somebody important. Like be a teacher. Or a reality TV star. I dare you to stand up here. To call the shots. To be a role model.
An inspiration. An innovator.
To be a teacher.
Think you can change my life?
Make me excited about science like you. Have a career that really means something? Then do it. I dare you.
They say you don't have to be so strong. But this is my mother, my purpose. Strength is not optional. See, I lift her now like she raised me then. So I know my strength is super, but I'm still human.
Oh, look who's here.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, President and Executive Director of EmeraldPlanet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis looking around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, technology, services, products, and of course the leaders that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we'll have about 9 billion people on the planet by 2050 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of the century, how we're going to be able to set the infrastructure so that we take care of these people and they actually have an increased quality of life and not just exist. And we have 3 people that are coming on as a panel. This is from what's called the Mission Continues. These are all either a retired military officer or returning service members. Oscar Vaughn is sitting right beside me. He's retired out of the U.S. Air Force and is an active member of the 4th Platoon here in the Mission Continues. And then we have Rose Feroah, who is the 4th Platoon leader, wears the white hat. And the Mission Continues, a former member of the United States Marine Corps. And then right on the very end over here is E.J. Delpero. He is the 5th Platoon leader, Mission Continues, former member of the United States Navy. So at least we have 3 of the 5 branches of service, and we're glad to have all of you here. And again, thanks to each of you for your service through your various branch that you represent. And I have to look over here at Rose. She's coming in by Skype. And E.J. with the Navy, which we had some of your submariners in some of my projects in the past. So glad to have you here. But anyway, we're going to kick off and talk about this, what's called the Mission Continues and where you see it going in the future, its impact, and how the organization is paying it forward, at the same time allowing people in the local communities to be involved and paying it forward. So I'm going to kick off with Oscar because he's the one that got the other 2 of you here and doing this. But looking at this nonprofit, the Mission Continues, Oscar, what do you see for the future, and how is this the way that you do things, the way you organize? It is based with the military, of course, but it seems to have replication across many nonprofits that may be less successful than what you're doing at this time. So explain that to us.
Well, first, there are a lot of military-based, former military-type nonprofits out there, and a lot of them do great work. Ones that are larger than we are, frankly. Wounded Warrior Project. You also have Team Rubicon, Team Red, White, and Blue. There are a lot of folks that are in service organizations like the one we are in. But I think what makes us unique is the way in which we do service. I think the fact that we really try to embed ourselves into our local community, the communities we live in. We try to make projects that are sustaining. So the goal is to build something so that we don't keep taking care of it year after year. The community takes care of it after we leave. So a lot of the things that Rose and EJ have done through their work, especially with the work with the Park Service and the way we're trying to help, increase urban farming in the DC area, specifically Southeast.
And also working with the schools.
Absolutely, working with the schools. Those are things that are you can replicate, and you don't need to have us there year after year to redo the wheel. So those are the types of things I think year over year, that'll be our mark in the community, right? What makes what we created, the community will sustain.
Yeah, and the whole thing about it too, if you have real leadership, when you leave, things keep going.
Absolutely.
And you learn that you don't really need to be there anymore because people have learned. And I think that's what you're actually sharing right now. The mission continues, is that the mission really will continue if you train people in the local community, and then you're bringing new people from returned service members, retired military officers in all the time, so it's always renewing, refreshing itself.
Yes.
And that's very, very important. Rose, you're a Marine, and most people would say, oh my goodness, really? But as a service... And we had that conversation before, but as a service member, why did you want to continue some type of service? You were in the military, you got out, you had your freedom to go elsewhere, and then you said, I really need to have more structure and also more opportunities to really give myself. Why that?
Well, as I can't speak for other branches, but as Marine and as an active duty service member, they instill within you that you are a useful member and that you are the tip of the spear. You are at the head of, I don't want to say everything, but you're the tip of the spear. And when you get out, you still have that, but then that fades because you're not doing anything to actively contribute to that. I felt stagnant. And when I was presented with that volunteer opportunity, and I jumped on it and I saw what the Mission Continues is doing, I saw my opportunity to really be part of a community that I saw kind of crumbling around me. And I want to be part of the forward movement, or the positive forward movement in my community. And I wanted to use the skills I've learned in the Marine Corps and apply those.
Well, and using that symbolic nature of the tip of the spear, I think, is very important. And I think it really, even though the Marine Corps prides itself in that and has a very unique history, the American military has been doing that, since its existence, going back even before the Revolutionary War. And that keeps expanding because, as Oscar and I and EJ had talked about earlier, it's really the largest humanitarian organization on the planet. And people don't know that, and many people don't want to know that. But you have to just keep telling it, and I think this tip of the spear is really where we're going. And EJ, looking at what you've done, why did you think that the Mission Continues is really a very positive way in order to be involved in the community, but a positive way to reintroduce yourself into a community, because you were in a very unique social setting with the military. You come out of that, and then it's wide open. It's whatever there that you want. But yet it's very important that all 5 branches have this opportunity. What did you see?
Speaking of the military, it's also, the Department of Defense is also one of the most diverse organizations in the country. And I think diversity makes us stronger, and the Mission Continues really values diversity, and that's kind of where I wanted to go. I wanted to go somewhere where we valued everybody that that came to volunteer with us, and at our projects, it's not just veterans that are welcome. We welcome non-veteran volunteers, and as Oscar mentioned earlier, we welcome the kids, and we actually take time to teach the kids how to do stuff at the project site, and we really foster that growth, and so that's the kind of environment that I want to be in.
Now, and the whole thing about positive reinforcement, and this is something that you and I were talking about a little earlier, is that the children at the same time are training the adults in many things that they don't know.
Right.
And so you're developing the sensitivity both ways.
Yeah, in fact, Rose's 2 girls will teach you everything you need to know. I'll tell you right now.
No, okay, well, then we'll have to put them to use. Oscar,
in 2 years, I'm telling you.
Going back to special skills, energy, and attitudes of returning service members and also retired military officers, what is unique about the skill sets that these people coming out of the military have that really fits nicely into the Mission Continues, not as a military-related organization, but being in the community itself?
Well, every service has their own set of core values. And even though I've been retired from the Air Force for a while, we have 3 core values: integrity, service before self, and excellence in all we do. So those things you take with you no matter where you go, no matter what you do, no matter what job you have, and they are part of your day-to-day life. They're part of your not only your military DNA, but also your social DNA. So you apply those types of lessons and those types of attitudes, and that's what makes military members so valued in the workforce and in the community, because we come with a set of values. You don't have to remind us to be on time. You don't have to remind us to work hard when we get there and say thank you and please and yes ma'am, no ma'am, those types of things, the things that you would want any rational person to be able to do. And so when you take those values, and that's in all services that we have, including our brothers and sisters in the Coast Guard, because they are becoming more and more part of our organization as well. You take all those good things and then you try to impart that into the community at large, right? So when we're in Southeast or we're at Mount Vernon or wherever we're working, we take those values and we try to let folks see, no matter what service you're in, you still want to make that part of your daily job, and also part of the project that you're doing right there. So that's a good part.
Rose, going back to this tip of the spear and the skills, the values you learned in the Marine Corps, what would you say would be maybe 3 lessons learned that you had through the military that you've been able to carry over into civilian life, and now that you're really implementing and the mission continues, that enhances where you are in the civilian life and at the same time enhances the values within the communities that you're actually serving?
I'm just going to go ahead and take the lessons of honor, courage, and commitment I learned in the Marine Corps. To honor your community is to honor yourself and the environment in which you live, because your environment has a very strong effect on how we conduct our day-to-day lives and how we treat people. Sometimes it takes a lot of courage to walk up to somebody you just saw throw garbage on the ground and tell them, there's a garbage can 6 inches away from where that landed, and I bet you could make it. So sometimes that takes a little bit of courage, but when people see that you care, they're not afraid to care too. And commitment. We don't go into these communities, into the parks, and we're not a wham bam, thank you ma'am, and we're gone. We're there for until everybody's established enough to take it on, to take those roots that we really nourished and to grow them forward.
That's fantastic. EJ, I think you have the last word. We're running out of time here. Looking at the mission continues and your military background and the 3 that are here, what do you see for the future of that over the next 5, 10, and 15 years as we go through a changing world, a very dynamic world, in many ways a very unsettled world? What do you think this is bringing?
To preface, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer this question, but I will give it a go. So the mission continues, started in a mass deployment program 2 years ago. Oscar, Rose, and I were part of the first one in Detroit. Rose and I were lucky enough to go back as ambassadors to Atlanta, Operation West Side Surge. And what that is a week-long service project and where they bring 80 veterans from across the country to serve for a week. And so that's going to be happening more and more, and that's going to be building the movement more and more. So thank you for having us today, and we really appreciate it.
Glad to have you here. Thank you for being Oscar, EJ, Rose. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Oscar Vaughn, Rose Feroah, and EJ Delpero. Thank you for being with us in the Emerald Planet as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet. Good job. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, buddy.
Rose, thank you very much.
That's all right. You did a great job.
That was so much fun. Thank you.
You all did a wonderful job.
High five, Rose.
Yeah, next time.